Hey everyone! Welcome back to Chatterbox, your go to podcast for all things life, friendship, and meaningful conversations. I'm Sarah, and today we've got a really fun and insightful topic to dive into: self introductions. You know, the art of introducing yourself, whether you're meeting someone for the first time, starting a new job, or just trying to make new friends. And with me is one of my closest friends, Alex. Hey, Alex.
Hey, Sarah. Hey, everyone. Super excited to be here. I feel like this topic is one we all can relate to. I mean, we introduce ourselves so many times in life, and it's one of those things that seems simple but can be tricky.
Exactly. It's funny how saying, "Hi, I'm Sarah," seems like it's all there is to it. But then it's like, wait, what else do I say? How do I not make it awkward? And what's the balance between sharing too much or too little?
Oh, totally. I feel like it's a balancing act. You want to seem approachable, but not like you're oversharing right off the bat. It's tricky.
Yeah, and today we're going to get into the nuances of it. Whether it's a professional setting, a casual one, or even a virtual space. So, to kick things off, Alex, why don't we just start by sharing our own experiences? Like, what do you usually say when you introduce yourself?
Sure, let's see. I think it depends on where I am and who I'm talking to. In a more formal setting, like at work, I'd say something like, "Hi, I'm Alex. I'm a software developer, and I've been with this company for about 3 years now." But when it's more casual, like meeting new friends or at a party, I'll go for something lighter, like, "Hey, I'm Alex, and I'm really into hiking and photography. How about you?" That way, it opens up the conversation.
I like that. It's casual but still informative enough that the person knows a bit about what you're into. You're giving them something to respond to, which helps avoid those awkward silences.
Exactly. What about you? Do you have a go to introduction, or do you just wing it every time?
I'd say I have a loose script, but I definitely tailor it depending on the situation. In a professional setting, like when I'm in a meeting or networking, I'll say, "Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a content creator and a social media strategist. I've been working in digital marketing for about 5 years now." That's like my professional spiel. But in a casual situation, I'll keep it more laid back. "Hey, I'm Sarah. I love writing and I'm a total coffee addict."
That's so you. Coffee addict is definitely something that would come up if someone was getting to know you. It's like your personality in one line.
Right? I think part of a good self introduction is giving a little nugget of your personality. It makes you more relatable, and it doesn't have to be something deep. It can be as simple as mentioning a hobby or something quirky about yourself.
For sure. And it's interesting because when you introduce yourself, you're kind of setting the tone for the whole conversation. Like, if you're formal, it'll probably stay formal. But if you throw in something casual, it helps the other person loosen up too.
That's such a good point. It's almost like you're giving the other person permission to be themselves. So let's dive into that a bit more. What do you think makes a good introduction?
I think first off, you want to be clear and confident. People can pick up on your energy, so if you're nervous or unsure of yourself, they might feel awkward too. I know it's easier said than done, but even if you have to fake a little confidence, it can help break the ice.
Oh, definitely. Confidence is key. I've noticed that when I'm a little nervous, I tend to rush through my introduction. I'll say, "Hi, I'm Sarah." But then I forget to breathe and end up blurting out everything too quickly.
Haha, I've totally done that. It's like you're in a race to get it over with. But yeah, pacing yourself helps. Take a breath, smile, and just speak naturally. You don't have to give your entire life story in one breath.
Absolutely. I think another thing that helps is asking questions back. Like, don't just make the intro all about you. After you've said your piece, you can ask something like, "What about you?" Or, "What do you do for fun?" It keeps the conversation going and shows that you're interested in them too.
Exactly. It's like you're handing the conversational baton to the other person. Otherwise, it can feel like a one sided monologue, and nobody likes that.
So true. And while we're on the topic of asking questions, I think it's also important to listen. Like, really listen to the other person's response. That way, you can follow up with something meaningful instead of just waiting for your turn to talk.
Oh man, that's so important. I've been in conversations where you can tell the other person is just waiting for their turn, and it makes the whole thing feel superficial. When someone actually listens, it makes a huge difference.
Exactly. It makes the conversation feel more genuine. And that's when you start building a real connection.
Yeah, and let's talk about that awkward moment when you introduce yourself and the other person doesn't seem interested. Have you ever had that?
Oh my gosh, yes. It's the worst when you feel like you've just laid out this nice introduction and they're like, cool, and then nothing. I mean, what do you even do in that situation?
It's so awkward, but I've learned that you can't take it personally. Sometimes people are shy, or maybe they're just having an off day. I usually try to pivot by asking them something specific. Like, if I've said I'm into hiking, I might ask, do you enjoy the outdoors? Or something related to what I shared. Sometimes they just need a little nudge to open up.
That's a good strategy. I think that's a nice way of showing you're still interested in the conversation without making it seem forced. And if they're really not engaging, maybe it's a sign to gracefully exit the conversation. Not every interaction has to be perfect, right?
Exactly. You can't win them all, and that's okay. Sometimes the vibe just isn't there, and that's not a reflection on you.
Right. And speaking of vibes, I wanted to touch on introducing yourself in different environments. How would you handle introductions at a networking event versus, say, a casual meetup with friends?
Oh, good one. Networking events are interesting because the introductions tend to be more formal. You're there to make professional connections, so I'd focus more on what I do and how it relates to the event. Like, hi, I'm Alex. I'm a software developer, and I specialize in creating user friendly apps. It's short, clear, and gives the other person something to connect with if they're in a related field.
Yeah, that makes sense. You want to make an impression, but also keep it relevant. I find that in networking settings, I'll often throw in a question right after my intro to keep things flowing, like, what brings you to this event? Or, what projects are you working on? It shows you're interested in more than just pitching yourself.
Exactly. And then in a casual meetup, it's more about your personality and interests, right? It's less about work and more about what makes you, you. So I'd probably mention something like, hey, I'm Alex. I love hiking and exploring new coffee spots. It's like an open invitation for them to connect with something fun and lighthearted.
Totally. And I feel like people relax more in those casual settings, so you don't need to stick to a strict formula. It's more about making a genuine connection, even if it's just over a shared love for coffee.
Oh, yeah, coffee brings people together for sure. I think the key in both settings is to be adaptable. Whether it's formal or casual, you're still being yourself, just emphasizing different aspects based on the situation.
Exactly. So, we've covered a lot already: confidence, pacing, listening, asking questions. But what about virtual introductions, like Zoom meetings or social media? That's a whole other beast, right?
Oh, yeah, virtual introductions are a whole new ballgame. You don't have that face to face energy to rely on. So, you have to make your introduction a little more engaging. On Zoom, for example, I always make sure to look into the camera, smile, and speak clearly. I might say, hey everyone, I'm Alex. I'm really excited to be part of this team, and I can't wait to work with all of you on this project. It's short, but upbeat.
I love that. And I think adding a little enthusiasm is key in virtual settings. Since body language is limited, your voice and facial expressions have to do a lot of the work. For me, I try to be a little more animated in my tone so people can feel my energy even through the screen.
That's a great tip. And what about on social media? Like when you're introducing yourself on Instagram or LinkedIn, how do you handle that?
Oh, social media intros are fun. They're like your digital calling card. On LinkedIn, I keep it professional. Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a content creator with a passion for storytelling and digital marketing. But on Instagram, it's more personal. Hey, I'm Sarah, writer, coffee lover, and proud dog mom. It's still me, but the platform dictates how much I lean into my personal versus professional side.
That's a really good point. The platform and audience definitely matter. I've found that on platforms like LinkedIn, where the focus is more on professional achievements, I'll stick to my career. But on something like Instagram, I show more of my hobbies and personal interests.
Exactly. It's all about knowing your audience. You want to connect with people where they're at.
Totally. So, to wrap things up, I guess the key takeaway is that there's no one size fits all approach to self introductions. It's about being authentic, adaptable, and aware of your environment. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Whether you're meeting someone for work, at a party, or online, the best self introduction is one that reflects who you really are. And hey, a little confidence and a smile never hurt either. So, Alex, now that we've covered the basics of self introductions, I was thinking, what about the situations where you have to reintroduce yourself? Like when you've met someone before, but they don't remember you, or maybe when you've changed jobs or roles. How do you navigate that?
Oh, that's a really good one. It can be kind of awkward when you've met someone before and they don't remember you. I've definitely been there. I try to approach it lightly, like, hey, I'm Alex. We met briefly at the last event, but it's great to see you again. That way, you're not putting pressure on them to remember you, but you're also acknowledging that this isn't your first meeting.
That's smooth. It gives them an easy out if they don't remember, and it avoids that awkward, we've met before conversation that can feel accusatory. I think the key is to not make them feel bad about forgetting. It happens to everyone.
Exactly. I think keeping it light and friendly helps. And if it's been a while since you've last met, it might be helpful to mention what's new in your life or role. Like, last time we met, I was working in development, but I've recently moved into a project management role. That way, you're also giving them something to connect with and talk about.
Oh, I like that. It's like a little update that keeps the conversation moving forward. And speaking of updates, what do you think about reintroducing yourself when you've changed something major in your life? Like if you've shifted careers, started a new project, or even gone through a big personal transformation.
That can be tricky, but also really empowering. When I changed careers a few years ago, I remember feeling kind of nervous about reintroducing myself to people I'd known in my previous field, but I learned that it's important to embrace the change. I'd say something like, hey, I'm Alex. I recently transitioned into software development, and it's been a really exciting journey. That way, you're owning your new identity and giving people a sense of your enthusiasm for it.
Yes, it's all about confidence, right? If you're confident in your new path, it'll come across naturally in your introduction. I think people are often afraid to redefine themselves because they feel like they'll be judged or won't be taken seriously. But if you present it with excitement and pride, others will follow your lead.
Absolutely. And I think people actually appreciate when someone is open about their growth or changes. It's relatable. We all evolve over time, and it's refreshing to hear someone say, this is who I am now, and I'm excited about it.
For sure. And that reminds me of something else. What about when you're in a situation where you're expected to introduce yourself to a large group, like in a meeting or at an event? I feel like that can be intimidating for a lot of people. Any tips on handling that?
Oh, yeah, group introductions can be super nerve wracking. I used to get really anxious about them, but now I have a little mental checklist I use. First, I keep it short and sweet. People don't want to hear a long monologue from each person, especially if it's a big group. So I'll say something like, hi, I'm Alex and I'm a software developer. I've been with the company for 3 years, and I'm really passionate about creating user-friendly apps. Then I'll usually add something personal like, outside of work, I'm into hiking and exploring new places. It's short, clear, and gives people a little glimpse into who I am beyond just my job title.
That's perfect, short and memorable. You're giving them just enough to get a sense of who you are without overwhelming them. And I love that you add a personal detail. It makes you stand out and feel more approachable. I think people often forget that even in professional settings, It's okay to share a bit of your personality.
Definitely. It humanizes you, and it makes it easier for others to strike up a conversation with you later. Like, someone might come up to you afterward and say, "Oh, you're into hiking? I love hiking too." It creates instant rapport.
Yes. And one thing I found helpful is to make eye contact with a few people in the room while introducing yourself. It helps you feel more connected to the audience, and it's less nerve wracking than just staring out into a big group. Plus, people appreciate that personal touch, even in a larger setting.
That's such a good tip. Eye contact makes a huge difference in how you're perceived. It shows that you're present and engaged. I've noticed that when I focus on making eye contact with just a few people, it makes me feel calmer too. Like I'm just talking to a small group instead of an entire room.
Exactly. And I think another thing to remember is that everyone else is probably just as nervous about introducing themselves. So you're not alone in that feeling. Sometimes just knowing that can make it a little less intimidating.
Oh, for sure. We tend to get caught up in our own heads, but really, everyone's in the same boat. If anything, people are usually focused on what they're going to say, not on judging you.
Yes, and that brings me to something else. What about when someone introduces themselves to you and you're not sure how to respond? Like, sometimes people will give you their whole life story, and you're left wondering, how do I follow up on that?
Yeah, that can happen. When someone gives you a long or detailed introduction, I think the key is to find one thing they said that you can latch onto and respond to. If they talk about their job, their hobbies, or something personal, pick one aspect and ask a follow up question. It shows you were listening and it helps keep the conversation going without feeling overwhelmed by everything they shared.
Yes, that's such a good approach. And it's also okay to redirect the conversation if needed. Like, if someone's giving you too much information, you can guide the conversation back to a more manageable level by saying something like, "That's really interesting. I'd love to hear more about your work in software development. How did you get into that?" It helps refocus the conversation and gives both of you a clearer path forward.
Exactly. And it's also okay to gently steer the conversation if it starts to get too off topic or personal, especially in a more professional setting. Sometimes people overshare without realizing it, and it's up to you to bring the conversation back to a place where both of you feel comfortable.
That's such a good point. Sometimes people get nervous and end up talking too much or sharing too many personal details, and it's okay to redirect the conversation without being rude. It's all about keeping things balanced.
For sure. And speaking of balance, one last thing I wanted to touch on is how to introduce yourself when you're in a leadership role. Like, what's the best way to come across as approachable and authoritative at the same time?
Ooh, good question. I think in a leadership role, it's really important to strike that balance between being confident in your position and still being approachable. When I've had to introduce myself in leadership settings, I'll say something like, "Hi, I'm Sarah, and I'll be leading this project. I've been working in this field for several years, and I'm really looking forward to collaborating with all of you." Then I'll make a point to ask for input or open the floor for questions. That way, it shows I'm confident in my role, but also open to feedback and collaboration.
That's a great approach. It shows that you're in charge, but not in an intimidating way. I think people respect leaders who are confident, but also willing to listen and engage with their team.
Exactly. And I think it's important to emphasize the team aspect. Leadership is about guiding people, but also working with them, not above them. So, introducing yourself in a way that shows you're there to support and collaborate with others can really set the tone for a positive working relationship.
Absolutely, it's all about building trust and creating an environment where people feel comfortable. A good introduction in a leadership role can go a long way in establishing that dynamic from the start.
100%. Well, Alex, I think we've covered just about everything when it comes to the art of self introduction. From casual conversations to professional settings, virtual spaces, and even leadership roles, it all boils down to being authentic, confident, and adaptable.
Some questions and answers related to the topic of self introduction based on the conversation between Sarah and Alex.
Why is self-introduction important?
Self introduction is important because it sets the tone for how others perceive you and how the conversation will unfold. It's often the first impression people get, whether in a professional or casual setting. A good self introduction helps build rapport, establish credibility, and open the door for further interaction.
How do you introduce yourself in a professional setting?
In a professional setting, it's important to be concise, clear, and confident. Focus on your role and what you bring to the table. For example, hi, I'm Sarah, and I'm a content creator with 5 years of experience in digital marketing. This gives the person an idea of your professional background and makes it easier for them to engage with you on that level.
How can you make a self-introduction more engaging in casual settings?
In casual settings, it helps to be a bit more personal and lighthearted. Mentioning your interests or hobbies is a good way to open up the conversation. For example, hey, I'm Alex, and I love hiking and photography. Adding something fun or unique about yourself makes the conversation more approachable and gives the other person something to relate to.
What's a good way to introduce yourself during a virtual meeting?
In virtual meetings, it's important to be clear and engaging, as body language is limited. Look into the camera, smile, and keep your introduction brief but informative. For example, hi, I'm Alex, and I'm excited to work with everyone on this project. I've been in software development for 3 years and can't wait to collaborate. This shows enthusiasm and helps compensate for the lack of in person interaction.
What's a good way to introduce yourself during a virtual meeting?
In virtual meetings, it's important to be clear and engaging, as body language is limited. Look into the camera, smile, and keep your introduction brief but informative. For example, hi, I'm Alex, and I'm excited to work with everyone on this project. I've been in software development for 3 years and can't wait to collaborate. This shows enthusiasm and helps compensate for the lack of in person interaction.
What are some tips for handling group introductions?
When introducing yourself to a large group, keep your introduction short and memorable. Focus on your key role or a fun fact about yourself. For example, hi, I'm Sarah. I've been in content creation for 5 years, and outside of work, I'm a total coffee addict. Adding a small personal detail makes you stand out and helps break the ice.
How do you handle reintroducing yourself to someone who may not remember you?
Reintroducing yourself without making the other person feel awkward is key. You can say something like, hi, I'm Alex. We met briefly at the last event. This way, you acknowledge the previous encounter without putting pressure on them to remember. It keeps the tone friendly and casual.
What should you do if someone gives you too much information during their self-introduction?
If someone gives a lengthy or detailed introduction, focus on one key thing they mentioned and ask a follow-up question about that. For example, if they talked about multiple hobbies and their job, you could say, that's cool. How did you get into photography? This shows you were listening and keeps the conversation manageable without overwhelming yourself.
How can you balance being approachable and authoritative in a leadership role during an introduction?
In a leadership role, your introduction should convey both confidence and approachability. For example, hi, I'm Sarah, and I'll be leading this project. I've been in the field for several years, and I'm excited to collaborate with everyone. This introduces your role with authority, but also opens the door for collaboration and makes you more relatable to your team.
How can you keep a conversation flowing after introducing yourself?
After introducing yourself, ask the other person a question to keep the conversation moving. For example, if you mention you love hiking, you could ask, do you enjoy outdoor activities? Asking open-ended questions allows the other person to share more about themselves, making the conversation feel natural.
What's the best way to introduce yourself when you've had a major life or career change?
When you've had a major change, embrace it confidently in your introduction. For example, hi, I'm Alex. I recently transitioned into software development, and it's been an exciting new journey for me. By owning your new role or life direction, you help others see it as a positive and important part of your identity.
How do you introduce yourself in a new job or when joining a new team?
When starting a new job or joining a new team, your introduction should highlight your role and eagerness to contribute. For example, hi, I'm Sarah, and I just joined the team as a content strategist. I'm really excited to work with all of you and bring my experience in digital marketing to the projects we're working on. This shows both enthusiasm and a willingness to collaborate.
What if you're introverted or shy? How can you make a strong self introduction?
If you're introverted or shy, keep your introduction simple and to the point, but with a touch of openness. For example, hi, I'm Alex. I've been working in IT for a few years now, and I'm looking forward to getting to know everyone. You don't have to be overly outgoing to make a good impression. Your sincerity and professionalism will speak for themselves.
What are some mistakes to avoid during a self introduction?
Some common mistakes to avoid include talking too much, keep it concise, avoid sharing every detail of your life story, being too vague, be clear about who you are and what you do. Sounding rehearsed, even if you've prepared, try to make it sound natural and conversational. Forgetting to smile or engage. Facial expressions and tone are important, especially in person or on virtual calls. Smiling helps create a friendly atmosphere.
How should you introduce yourself when networking at an event?
In networking situations, you want to be professional but approachable. A good example is, hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a content creator specializing in digital marketing. I love connecting with other creatives to share ideas and collaborate. This shows who you are, what you do, and that you're open to further conversation or collaboration.
How can you tailor your introduction for different audiences?
Tailoring your introduction to your audience involves focusing on what's relevant to them. For example, in a professional setting, focus on your career and expertise. At a social event, share something fun or personal, like a hobby. In mixed company, find a balance by mentioning both your profession and a personal interest, like, I'm a project manager by day and an amateur photographer on the weekends. Knowing your audience helps you choose the right tone and content for your introduction.
What's a good self introduction for social media like Instagram or LinkedIn?
On social media, your introduction depends on the platform. For LinkedIn, keep it professional. Hi, I'm Alex, a software developer with a passion for creating intuitive user experiences. On Instagram, it's more personal. Hey, I'm Alex, tech enthusiast, hiking lover, and always searching for the next big adventure. Each platform has a different vibe, so your introduction should match the tone of the audience.
What's the best way to introduce yourself if you have multiple roles, e.g., freelancer, business owner, student?
When you wear multiple hats, it's important to introduce yourself based on the context. If you're at a business event, focus on the role that's most relevant. For example, hi, I'm Sarah. I run a freelance content marketing business, helping brands tell their stories. If you're at an educational or creative event, you could say, hi, I'm Sarah. I'm studying design, and I also do freelance content creation.
How do you introduce yourself in an email or over text?
In written introductions, clarity and professionalism are key. For an email, it's common to say, hi, my name is Alex. I'm reaching out to introduce myself as the new project manager for XYZ company. I'm excited to collaborate with you on the upcoming project. Over text or messaging apps, it can be more casual. Hi, I'm Alex from XYZ company. Just wanted to introduce myself and see if you had any questions before our meeting.
How can humor be used effectively in a self introduction?
Humor can make your introduction more memorable, but it should be light and appropriate for the setting. For example, in a casual setting, you might say, "Hi, I'm Sarah, a content creator and full time coffee addict." It's playful and gives a glimpse of your personality. In professional settings, keep humor subtle and relevant to avoid appearing unprofessional.
What should you do if you forget someone's name after they've introduced themselves?
It's perfectly okay to ask for someone's name again, especially if it's early in the conversation. You can politely say, "I'm sorry, I missed your name earlier. Can you remind me?" This shows that you're engaged and want to connect. People generally appreciate when others make the effort to remember their name.
How do you introduce yourself when giving a speech or presentation?
When introducing yourself during a speech or presentation, you want to establish credibility, but also set a warm, engaging tone. For example, "Good morning, everyone. I'm Alex, a software developer with over 5 years of experience creating user friendly applications. I'm excited to share some insights today about how we can improve user experience design." This not only introduces you, but also sets up what the audience can expect.
What's the best way to introduce yourself when you're meeting someone you admire or look up to?
When meeting someone you admire, it's important to be respectful and concise. Start with, "Hi, I'm Sarah. I've been following your work for a while, and I'm really inspired by what you've accomplished." This shows genuine interest without being overly eager. You can then ask a thoughtful question or express appreciation for their work.
How do you introduce yourself if you're at a multilingual event or in an international setting?
In a multilingual or international setting, keep your introduction simple and respectful of the cultural context. For example, "Hi, I'm Alex. I work in software development, and I'm thrilled to be here and learn from everyone's perspectives." You may also want to slow down your speech and avoid using slang or idioms that might not translate well.
What if you're nervous or anxious about introducing yourself? How can you calm your nerves?
If you're nervous, take a deep breath and keep your introduction simple. Focus on the basics and try to smile. One technique is to rehearse your introduction beforehand so you feel more comfortable. Another helpful trick is to remind yourself that most people are more focused on themselves and their own introductions than on judging yours.
How can you follow up after introducing yourself to someone?
Following up is just as important as the initial introduction. After meeting someone, you can send a quick message or email saying, "Hi, it was great meeting you earlier. I enjoyed our conversation about topic, and I'd love to stay in touch." This keeps the connection alive and opens the door for future interaction. So, Alex, do you ever feel like going to the supermarket is more of a mission than just a simple errand?
Oh, absolutely. It's like you go in thinking, I just need a few things. And then suddenly, you've been wandering the aisles for an hour, and your cart is full of stuff you didn't even plan to buy.
Exactly. You walk in with a plan, but it all goes out the window the moment you see something on sale or those tempting seasonal snacks.
The worst part is when you go without a list. I swear, every time I do that, I either forget something important or end up buying things I don't need. Last time, I went in for milk and bread, and I came out with fancy cheese, a bag of chips, and no milk.
Oh, I've done that so many times. I always tell myself I can just remember everything, but I never do. Lists are a lifesaver, honestly. But then again, I still get distracted even with a list. The other day, I went in for veggies, and somehow I ended up in the bakery section. I mean, why do they put the bread section right at the front? It's a trap.
It really is. And don't get me started on the sample stations. Like, 1 minute you're just browsing, and then someone's offering you a bite of something you didn't even know existed, and suddenly it's in your cart.
Yes, it's always something weirdly specific too, like some artisanal dip or a fancy yogurt you wouldn't normally buy. But after tasting it, you think, "I guess I need this now."
And that's how your grocery bill triples. But honestly, I kind of enjoy it though. Sometimes wandering around, finding new things to try is part of the fun, as long as I don't overspend too much.
Yeah, I get that. It's like a little adventure. But at the same time, I do try to stick to a budget, so I need to reel it in sometimes. Do you ever do meal planning before you go to the supermarket? Or are you more of a grab what looks good kind of shopper?
I want to say I meal plan, but I'm definitely more of a grab what looks good kind of shopper. I always start with good intentions, but then I see something and it just throws me off track. What about you? Are you strict with your shopping?
I try to be, but I'm not perfect at it. I'll do meal planning for the week and make a detailed list, but I always leave some room for impulse buys, like snacks or a random ingredient I might want to experiment with. It's all about balance, right?
So, that's smart. I should start doing that. Plan most of the essentials and then leave space for fun stuff. Otherwise, I end up with random ingredients that don't go together. And I'm left wondering, what can I actually cook with this?
Haha, yes, that's happened to me before. I've come home with ingredients like a bag of spinach, some fancy pasta, and a bottle of sauce, thinking I've got everything, only to realize I forgot the main ingredient, like chicken or tomatoes. It's a struggle.
Totally. Also, have you noticed how they rearrange the shelves sometimes? Like, just when you've memorized where everything is, they decide to move things around. Why do they do that?
Ugh, I know. It's like they're purposely trying to make us stay longer. I'll go in thinking I know exactly where the pasta is, and suddenly it's nowhere to be found, and I have to do a full lap of the store just to find it.
I read somewhere that they do that on purpose to make us browse more. You end up passing by other products, and boom, more chances to buy stuff you weren't planning on.
That makes so much sense. I fall for it every time. Like, I'll just be looking for cereal, but on the way, I see some new snacks, and there I go, adding things to my cart.
It's a whole strategy. Supermarkets are sneaky like that. And what about the checkout line? That's another trap. Those impulse buys like candy, magazines, and random gadgets. I'm always tempted, especially when the line's long, and I've got time to think about it.
Oh, totally. It's like, do I need this chocolate bar? Probably not, but I've been standing here for a while, so why not? They know how to get us at the last minute.
Exactly. And I always feel a bit guilty after falling for it, but it happens. I guess the trick is to be aware of the tactics and try to stay focused. Easier said than done, though.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's all about balance. Planning most of what you need, but not beating yourself up if you get a few extra things. Sometimes it's nice to treat yourself, especially if you find something new that turns out to be amazing.
Agreed. Shopping doesn't have to be so rigid. I mean, you can still enjoy the process while being mindful of what you're buying. That's probably the best way to go about it.
Yep, and honestly, next time I go, I'm definitely bringing my list, but I'll leave room for those little surprises. After all, who knows what cool new thing might catch my eye?
Exactly. Just embrace the chaos a little. But maybe avoid the sample stations if you're really trying to stick to the list. Haha.
And speaking of sticking to lists, do you ever get that weird sense of accomplishment when you actually get everything on your list and nothing extra?
Oh, yeah, it feels like a major victory. Like, you walk out of the store feeling like, I've conquered the supermarket. But that happens maybe once in a blue moon for me. It's rare.
Same. When it does happen, I'm like, look at me, being responsible and disciplined. But more often than not, I'm like, well, I didn't really need those extra cookies, but hey, they looked good.
Cookies are always the exception, let's be real. There's always that one aisle where everything looks too good to pass up. For me, it's the snack aisle. I try to avoid it if I'm really trying to stay on track, but somehow I still end up there.
Oh, the snack aisle is my weakness too. And have you noticed how they always put the healthier stuff at eye level, but then the really tempting, not so healthy stuff is just a bit lower or higher, so you have to reach for it? It's like they want to remind you of your better choices first, but then they leave the door wide open for the indulgences.
That's so true. It's like, here's the granola bars and protein snacks. But right below them are the chips and cookies. And, well, guess which one wins most of the time?
Chips, hands down, it's a total trap. I'll even tell myself, just get one healthy snack. But then I'll spot something like a new flavor of chips and think, I have to try that. For research purposes, of course.
Exactly. It's all about exploring your options, right? And honestly, I think it's good to allow a little flexibility. If you're too strict, it takes the fun out of it. I like trying new things, even if it's not always the healthiest choice.
Totally agree. It's like you said earlier, balance. We can't be perfect all the time, and that's okay. Sometimes you just need those snacks to get through the week. Speaking of which, do you have any go to items that you always grab, no matter what?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I always get eggs, pasta, and some kind of fruit, usually bananas or apples. Those are like my staples. And then if I'm in the mood for something extra, I'll grab some chocolate or a bag of popcorn. What about you?
Eggs are a must for me too. I always get them. I also tend to grab avocados, even if I don't have a specific plan for them. I just feel like they go with everything. And of course, coffee. I can't go through a week without restocking my coffee supply.
Coffee's essential. I don't think I've ever left the supermarket without at least one bag of beans or a pack of pods. I'm a bit of a coffee snob, though, so I'm always on the lookout for new blends to try.
Oh, same here. I love trying new coffee. It's one of those little luxuries that I never feel guilty about buying. Even if I'm trying to stick to a budget, coffee always makes the cut.
Absolutely, and it's one of those things where even if it's a bit pricier, you're going to use it, so it feels justified. Better than buying something that sits in the pantry for months.
Exactly. Speaking of things sitting in the pantry, do you ever get home and realize you've bought something you already had? Like, oh, great. Now I have 3 bottles of ketchup and 2 bags of rice.
Yes, that happens way too often. I'll be at the store thinking, do I have enough pasta at home? And then I buy it just to be safe, only to get home and find out I already have a stockpile. My pantry is full of duplicates because of that.
Same. And the worst part is when you're trying to organize everything and you realize how much extra stuff you've accumulated over time. It's like a mini version of hoarding. I always tell myself I'll keep better track, but then I forget.
It's hard, especially when life gets busy. You just don't have the mental energy to remember every little thing you have at home. I guess that's why some people do those big meal prep and shopping spreadsheets. It keeps everything super organized.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I've never actually done it, but it sounds like a good idea. Maybe it's something I'll try out if I ever get super organized, which, let's be real, might take a while.
Haha, same here. I love the idea of being that organized, but I don't know if I'll ever be that dedicated. I mean, I can barely keep my grocery list straight half the time.
Right? It's all about finding what works for you. I think if you can manage the essentials and still enjoy the process, that's what matters. It's not about being perfect.
Exactly. As long as you get through the week without running out of the basics, or, without forgetting the milk, it's a win in my book.
100%. And if I leave the supermarket with a few extra treats, that's just a bonus.
Some questions and answers related to the topic of going to the supermarket.
What's the best way to make sure you don't forget anything when you go to the supermarket?
The easiest way is to make a list before you go. You can either write it down on paper or use a notes app on your phone. Some people even organize their lists by category, like produce, dairy, or snacks. So it's easier to find everything while shopping. A list helps you stay focused and ensures you don't forget essentials.
How do you stick to a budget when shopping at the supermarket?
To stick to a budget, make a detailed shopping list and try to avoid impulse buys. It's also helpful to check for sales or use coupons before you go. You can compare prices between brands, buy in bulk for items you use often, and avoid shopping when you're hungry, because that's when you're more likely to buy unnecessary items.
Why do supermarkets rearrange their aisles so often?
Supermarkets rearrange their aisles to encourage customers to explore different sections and discover new products. This increases the likelihood of making unplanned purchases. When you have to search for something you normally buy, you might pass other products you hadn't considered before.
How can you avoid buying things you don't need at the supermarket?
One trick is to stick to your list and avoid browsing aisles you don't need to be in. If you're tempted by something, ask yourself, do I really need this right now or can it wait? Shopping on a full stomach also helps reduce impulse purchases. Staying focused on what you actually need makes it easier to resist unnecessary items.
What are some common supermarket traps that lead to overspending?
Common supermarket traps include sample stations. These can make you want to buy things you didn't plan on. End of aisle displays. These are often designed to catch your attention with flashy promotions. Checkout line items. Small snacks, drinks, or magazines placed near the register are there for last-minute impulse buys. Being aware of these strategies helps you avoid falling for them.
What should you do if you forget your shopping list at home?
If you forget your list, take a moment to mentally walk through your home and think about the meals you planned for the week. Start by focusing on key items you definitely need, like milk, bread, or eggs. If you made your list on your phone, even better. You can access it wherever you are.
How can meal planning help with grocery shopping?
Meal planning helps you know exactly what ingredients you need for the week, so you can make a precise shopping list. This reduces the chances of buying unnecessary items and helps you avoid those moments when you realize you're missing a key ingredient for dinner. It also helps you save money by reducing food waste.
What's the best way to avoid impulse buying snacks?
To avoid impulse buying snacks, try to skip the snack aisle altogether if you don't need anything from it. You can also stick to healthier alternatives like fruits or pre-planned treats. Another tip is to remind yourself of your budget or health goals before reaching for something you don't really need.
How can you save time at the supermarket?
To save time, organize your shopping list based on the layout of the store. For example, group all the produce items together, then the dairy, then frozen foods, etc. This way, you won't have to backtrack. You can also try to shop during off-peak hours, like early in the morning or late in the evening, when the store is less crowded.
What's the benefit of buying in bulk?
Buying in bulk can save you money, especially for items you use frequently like rice, pasta, or household products like paper towels. It also reduces the need to make repeat trips to the store. However, it's important to only buy in bulk if you know you'll use the items before they expire. Otherwise, it could lead to waste.
How do you know if you're getting a good deal at the supermarket?
To know if you're getting a good deal, pay attention to the unit price on the shelf tag. This tells you how much you're paying per ounce, pound, or other measurement. Comparing unit prices between brands or package sizes helps you see which option gives you the best value. Keep an eye out for sales, but also make sure you actually need the item before you buy it.
What are some ways to stay eco-friendly while grocery shopping?
To be more eco-friendly, you can bring reusable shopping bags and avoid plastic ones. Buying locally grown or organic produce helps reduce your carbon footprint. You can also buy in bulk to cut down on packaging waste and choose products with minimal packaging when possible.
How do supermarkets use product placement to encourage spending?
Supermarkets often place higher margin items at eye level so they're easier to see and grab. Essentials like milk and bread are often placed at the back of the store, so you have to walk past other tempting items to get to them. Sales and promotions are often featured at the ends of aisles to draw your attention. Being aware of these tactics helps you avoid unnecessary purchases.
What's the best way to handle long checkout lines?
To avoid long lines, try shopping during off-peak hours when the store is less crowded. If you're stuck in a long line, use the time to review your cart and see if you've forgotten anything or if you've added items you don't really need. Some stores also have self-checkout options, which can be faster if you only have a few items.
How do you stay on top of food expiration dates after a big shopping trip?
After a big shopping trip, organize your pantry and fridge by putting older items at the front and new items at the back. This way, you'll use up the older items first. You can also keep a small dry erase board or a notes app on your phone to track expiration dates for perishable items like dairy, meat, or fresh produce.
So, Alex, I had the craziest experience at the airport the other day.
Oh no, what happened? Airports can be such a wild ride sometimes.
Well, for starters, I almost missed my flight because I underestimated how long security would take. I swear, I got there thinking I had plenty of time, but the line for security was massive.
Oh, that's the worst. It's always hard to guess how long security will be. Sometimes you breeze through, and other times it's like a maze of people and bags.
Exactly. I thought I had enough time, but as soon as I saw that line, my heart dropped. I started looking around for any chance of it moving faster, but nope, everyone was stuck.
Did you try that trick where you ask someone to let you go ahead if you're really late?
I thought about it, but I didn't want to be that person, you know? Plus, it felt like everyone around me was just as panicked. So I just had to sweat it out and hope for the best.
Oh man, that's so stressful. Did you end up making it to the gate on time?
Barely? I sprinted like I was in some action movie. They were doing the final boarding call as I got there, and I could see the staff about to close the gate. I was like, wait, I'm here. Totally out of breath.
Oh wow, that's cutting it close. I hate that mad dash to the gate, but at least you made it. There's nothing worse than missing your flight after all that effort.
Seriously, I was so relieved when they let me board. I collapsed into my seat, feeling like I'd just run a marathon. The looks I got from the other passengers, though, like, really? You're the last one?
Ha ha, I've been there. That awkward moment when you're the last person to board and everyone's just staring at you like, where have you been?
Exactly. It was so embarrassing. And then, of course, I had to squeeze past people to get to my seat in the middle of the row. Everyone had to stand up to let me through, and I could just feel the frustration.
Ugh, middle seats are the worst. Did you at least get settled after all that chaos?
Eventually, yeah. Once I caught my breath and got situated, I was fine. But then, about halfway through the flight, I realized I forgot to grab snacks before boarding.
No, not the snacks. That's like the one thing you need for survival on a flight.
I know, right? I totally blanked in the rush. And of course, by the time the flight attendants came around, all the good stuff was gone. I had to settle for some crackers that weren't exactly satisfying.
Oh man, that's rough. Flying without snacks just makes the whole experience harder. I always try to hit one of those overpriced airport shops before boarding, just in case.
I usually do too. But this time, I was so focused on getting through security that I completely forgot. Lesson learned: always grab something no matter how much time you think you have.
Definitely. You never know when things will go sideways. Do you usually like flying, though? Or are you one of those people who finds the whole experience stressful?
I don't mind it too much, honestly. I mean, the process of getting to the airport and going through security can be stressful, but once I'm on the plane, I'm okay. What about you?
I'm kind of the same. I don't hate flying, but I definitely don't love the whole airport experience. The crowds, the waiting, the rushing, it's all a bit much sometimes.
Yeah, it can feel like a marathon. The whole process from checking in, getting through security, and then the mad dash to your gate. But once you're sitting on the plane, it's kind of a relief.
Exactly. I usually just plug in my headphones and zone out. It helps me block out all the chaos. I try to make the flight part relaxing at least.
Same. Noise canceling headphones are a game changer. It helps when there's crying babies or people chatting loudly around you.
Oh, for sure. Flights are way more bearable when you can just tune out. Have you ever had one of those super long layovers? Those can be even worse than the flight itself.
Ugh, yes. I once had a 6-hour layover and it felt like forever. You just end up wandering the terminal, trying to kill time, but it drags on and on.
I've had a long layover like that too, and it's brutal. You can only window shop or sit in the food court for so long before you start losing your mind.
Exactly. You try to pace yourself, but there's only so much to do. I started watching people just to pass the time, which is kind of entertaining, but still, it makes you appreciate direct flights so much more.
Oh, 100%. Direct flights are a blessing. Even if the flight's long, it's so much better than having to hang out in an airport for hours between connections.
Totally. I'll always choose a direct flight if I can, even if it's a bit more expensive. It just makes the whole travel experience so much smoother.
Agreed. Less hassle, fewer chances for things to go wrong. I think that's the best part about flying, when you know you don't have to worry about layovers or missing connections.
Definitely. Though, no matter what, I think we all have a few airport horror stories tucked away. It's just part of the whole experience, isn't it?
Oh, for sure. Airports are like their own little universe of chaos, but they also give you some of the best stories to tell later.
Exactly. And next time, I'm definitely going to be early. No more last minute sprints for me.
That sounds like a solid plan. Getting to the airport early is one of those things that just pays off in the end, even if it feels like a drag at first.
Absolutely. It gives you time to grab a coffee, maybe do a little people watching, or even just relax before the chaos. Plus, if anything does go wrong, you have a cushion of time to sort it out.
Right? And I love finding those little hidden spots in airports. Sometimes there are great lounges or even quieter seating areas where you can just chill out away from all the hustle and bustle.
Yes. I discovered a cozy little cafe in one airport where they had comfy chairs and free Wi Fi. I spent hours there, just relaxing and sipping my coffee while watching planes take off. It was way better than sitting at the gate.
That sounds amazing. I wish I'd found that when I had a long layover. Most of the time, I end up sitting at the gate, staring at my phone, but finding a good spot can make a world of difference.
It really does, and some airports have unique features, like art installations or live music performances, which can make the experience a bit more enjoyable. Have you ever stumbled upon anything interesting while waiting?
Yeah, I've seen live music at a couple of airports. It's always a nice surprise. I also once saw a pop up art exhibit that featured local artists. It definitely made the waiting time more enjoyable. It's cool how some airports try to create a more pleasant atmosphere.
Totally. It's like they're trying to take the edge off the travel stress. Plus, having something to look at or listen to makes the time fly by. Speaking of which, have you ever gotten to your destination and just felt completely wiped out from travel?
Oh, absolutely. After a long flight, I often feel like a zombie. It usually takes me a day or two to recover, especially if I'm crossing multiple time zones. What do you do to help you bounce back?
I try to stay hydrated during the flight, and once I land, I make it a point to get some sunlight. It really helps reset my body clock. I also avoid napping too much because that can mess up my sleep schedule even more.
Those are good tips. I usually try to stay active if I can, like going for a walk to stretch my legs. It helps shake off that travel fatigue. But I can never resist a good nap once I get to my hotel room.
Naps are so tempting, but I agree. Some fresh air and movement make a big difference. If I'm in a new city, I love exploring a bit right after I land, even if it's just for an hour or two. It helps me get in the right mindset for my trip.
That's a great way to start a trip. Getting a feel for the place immediately makes it more exciting. Do you usually have a list of things you want to see or do as soon as you arrive?
I do. I like to have a few must visit spots in mind, but I also leave room for spontaneous adventures. Sometimes the best experiences come from just wandering around and seeing what catches your eye.
For sure. I love that balance between having a plan and being open to new opportunities. Sometimes I end up finding hidden gems that aren't on any travel guide, just by exploring.
Exactly. And talking to locals can lead to some awesome recommendations too. They often know the best places to eat or cool spots that aren't super touristy.
Absolutely. I love chatting with locals, whether it's at a cafe or just striking up a conversation while waiting in line. It makes the travel experience so much richer.
Yes, I think it's one of the best parts of traveling, connecting with people and learning about their culture. It really adds depth to the whole trip.
Definitely. And those little conversations can lead to some unexpected adventures. I remember one time I met someone at a coffee shop who ended up inviting me to a local event that night. It was one of the highlights of my trip.